So I want to do this video on what is the best credit card for college students. But the issue is I haven't actually been to college in a long time. And so I'm really excited for today's video because I have with me two of my friends and fellow content creators who not only have recently graduated college, but also are very, very knowledgeable about credit cards. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce both Spencer Johnson and Matt Welter to the video. What's up, guys? How are you guys feeling today?
Good, Stan. How are you doing?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Stan. Really excited to be here.
All right. Thanks, Matt. Okay, so I think that it's going to be a really fun video. It's really special to me because it's really cool to hear from you guys that actually have been to college recently and can really give a lot of value to those who are also in the same situation where they're either in college right now or they're just about to graduate college. And so let's just get started right away here. So I want to get started with you, Spencer. Tell us a little about yourself and what got you interested in credit cards and personal finance in the first place.
Yeah, so I grew up in the Austin, Texas area, went to high school in that area. And then after I graduated high school, I decided to go into engineering, civil engineering specifically in college. And I went to the University of Texas at Austin and studied. So I really didn't move very far at all, still stayed in Austin. But yeah, so I studied civil engineering in college. And about a couple of years into college, I kind of figured out that business and finance, and more particularly, has been something that I'm actually really interested in. I just didn't know it, going through high school. I don't think many of us know what we actually want to do coming into college. But yeah, so I kind of figured out that's what I liked, and I ended up adding business as a minor just to be able to get some exposure to it. And then at about that time, I was also watching a ton of YouTube, of course, doing my research there, and found a bunch of people like Ben Hedges and Ask Sebi, who are the bigger content creators in the space, and started learning a bit about personal finance from them, as well as a little bit of credit cards. But at this point, I hadn't really used a credit card at all. I had seen my parents using them, but that was about it. And then actually at about the same time that I was doing this, probably about my junior year of college, my buddy actually recommended that I get started with credit cards, and he worked at a bank, so I kind of trusted his judgment there. And I ended up applying for my first credit card, the Chase Freedom Student. And at that point, I really dove in, head first, trying to figure out exactly how to use them responsibly, but also how to make money with my credit cards. And I really just fell in love with it. And I started watching a bunch of credit card content on YouTube. And that's kind of what prompted me, to be here where we are today.
Yeah, I think a lot of us actually started by watching a lot of YouTube videos on credit cards. I wish YouTube was around when I was in college, but unfortunately it wasn't. So I didn't have that advantage that you guys had. So I guess I'm dating myself a little bit here. But Matt Welter, I also want to ask you the question as well. So what actually got you interested in credit cards, personal finance, and also tell us a little bit about yourself as well.
Yeah, so I actually, when I was like 10 or 11 years old, I started selling baseball cards. I sold it with some of my classmates, but then also worked on eBay and kind of got a big taste of personal finance and entrepreneurship just at an early age, because I was always driven by that type of stuff. And I thought it was really fun to combine a passion with also learning about money and figuring out different ways to make money at the time, since obviously I was 10 years old, so I didn't have any income or anything coming in. And so that's where it all kind of started, is I was always interested in entrepreneurship and personal finance and all that stuff. And throughout high school and throughout all those times, I got really interested in investing and some other personal finance topics, such as, saving money and trying to invest as much as possible, considering that I wanted to make sure that the money that I had earned, whether that be at some of my summer jobs, was actually being put to use. So I was actually putting that into investments and things like that. Credit cards actually came later for me. So around my freshman year of college is when I opened my first credit card. And even at that point, I kind of just opened a credit card to open a credit card. I didn't know that much about credit cards overall and what credit card I was supposed to get. I kind of just followed what I saw some people around me, like my parents, what credit cards they had and things like that. But it wasn't around the last year or two where I actually got really interested in credit cards. And that's because I combined my passion with wanting to travel and also personal finance. And I combined them two together, which kind of got me to credit cards, because credit cards is a personal finance topic that also allows you to be able to travel for free if you use credit card points the right way and be able to redeem them for travel partners and all that type of stuff. So yeah, so I guess I always kind of had a knack for personal finance, and I was always interested in the topic. And then credit cards came a little bit later throughout the last couple of years, 1 to 2 years. But yeah, overall, I was always really interested in personal finance and ended up majoring in entrepreneurship in college as well. So
that's really interesting. I mean, I think it's really cool that, you started with personal finance, then you kind of went to the credit cards. And of course, those topics are very related to each other. I guess credit cards would be more of an offshoot of personal finance. And that's really important because, saving money and being good with money is very important to tie in with using credit cards. And that's something that some people can do very well, but some people sometimes can't. And I think that's part of the reason why we have a lot of interest in the credit card community is to really use the credit cards in a way that's responsible, but also getting a lot of value out of them, both in the cashback realm as well as in travel and with points and miles. And so that actually brings me kind of to the next question for you guys. And Spencer, I'll have you tackle this one first is, do you recommend using debit cards first, or really do you recommend going straight into credit cards? And if so, at what time at college would you just recommend doing that?
Yeah, so I think debit cards can be a really powerful stepping stone on your way to credit cards. I wouldn't definitely recommend jumping straight into credit cards if you've never even used a debit card, for example, because I think for me, whenever I first got started using a debit card compared to like cash, it kind of still felt like it wasn't exactly real money because I'm using a card to, just swipe. And of course, the money's coming out of my bank account with a debit card. But at the same time, you see that at a later date. You don't see it necessarily right away if you don't want to look at it. So it felt a little bit like less real than cash did. So I think for me, it was good to get started with that and really understand how I could handle my own finances first before I kind of took that step into using somebody else's money in credit cards or a credit line. And before I actually did that, I understood exactly how debit cards worked. Because again, once you take that step, you're really putting yourself at risk of becoming in credit card debt if you don't know how to use it correctly. But also, yeah, it's definitely not something that I would jump into right away. I think if you have the ability to be able to be added as an authorized user, for example, whenever you're first, starting out in college and you don't know how to handle credit cards yet, I think that'd be a good start. As long as your parents or whoever you're becoming an authorized user with is responsible with their credit cards and doesn't hurt your credit. But yeah, I think it's really good to build credit as soon as possible and then eventually get your own line in your own name and use it very responsibly, basically just like you would use a debit card. So I think it's a good stepping stone for sure.
Yeah, I think you're totally right, Spencer. I think you really have to really understand the basics of personal finance and how to use money responsibly, including using a debit card responsibly, because you can take that knowledge and really integrate that into your credit card use as well. And so that's a really good point to bring up. And specifically, when you feel ready, that's when you should really start using a credit card. And I think that could probably apply to anywhere in the college range between freshman year and senior year. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I think I didn't get started, like I mentioned, until my junior year or around there. So yeah, I think it took me a little bit of time to really get used to using a debit card first. And yeah, so I wouldn't recommend just jumping head in, like we mentioned, but it is a very powerful tool if you use it correctly. So
absolutely. That's why we all use them, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, Matt. So what was your experience with this too? Do you recommend using debit cards first, or would you go straight into credit cards?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything Spencer just said. I definitely think that starting out with debit cards first is definitely going to be something that's a good thing to do because you're going to build up some of those habits that are going to also relate to when you start using credit cards. So obviously credit card debt is no joke. So you don't want to just go head into credit cards and have no idea what you're doing and then not pay off your balance or whatever that may be and then end up in credit card debt because it's really hard to get out of that. So starting out with debit cards first is really good because it's kind of like a lower stakes than credit cards to where you don't have a lot of exactly the same risks that you'll have with credit cards. So I definitely do recommend that debit cards be started first. With me personally, I had debit cards throughout high school. Then at the start of college is when I first opened my first credit card, but I didn't get into the fully into the credit card game until a little bit later, like my junior year of college. So yeah, overall, I would recommend for the vast majority of people, pretty much everyone, honestly, that they start with debit cards first, get a feel for it, maybe use them for at least a year or two, and really understand what they're doing before they dive into the world of credit cards.
Good. So it looks like both of you guys both started around their junior year of college. And I guess with your circle of friends, the people that you are with in college or your friends' circles, did they also start in their junior years too? Or do you think that there are some that started later or not at all? Central, we'll start with you.
Yeah, thinking back on my closest friends, I did have a couple of friends that went into finance in college. And I think that kind of prompted them as well to kind of get, it kind of kicked them into gear when it came to personal finance as well. But other than one of my friends, I'm not sure that anybody close to me has or had a credit card until now, even if they might not even have one now. I just got my roommate to apply for his first credit card. But, luckily you have parents that will put their kids as authorized users on cards or put a loan in their name or something like that and pay it off on time, which has really helped a lot of my friends. But for people that never, even learned about that in the household, which I was one of those people, I just knew that my parents, used credit cards, but I didn't know how they worked. We didn't really talk about finance in the house that much. But yeah, that's why I think it's super important that you're you get set up early with somebody that's responsible to teach you the ropes beforehand. But yeah, I don't think many people actually really hear much about it or care to talk much about it until like after college, and everybody's like, oh crap, I kind of got to get my stuff in order, you know? That's kind of at least what my friends have been like.
Yeah, okay, I see. That makes sense. I mean, not everyone loves credit cards like we do. Yeah. So for us, it's like very weird, right? But I think, you know, for a vast majority of people, like they don't really think about this stuff until much later down the line. Was that the same experience as what you had, Matt?
Yeah, very similar, to be honest. Like I still have a lot of friends that don't have credit cards yet at all. I also do have some friends that actually watch some of my YouTube videos, and that kind of prompted them to either get their first credit card or get like started to get more into the credit card game itself.
That's awesome.
The person that I know actually who has gotten the most amount of credit cards out of my friends is my girlfriend, and that's just because I relay everything I learned directly to her. So she ends up benefiting, I guess, from some of it.
That's great.
But, yeah, so I know a lot. I have a lot of friends who don't have any credit cards still. I have some friends who maybe have like one or two. A couple of them may be prompted by me kind of in their ear telling them about the benefits of credit cards and things like that. But yeah, very similar to Spencer. Not that many people that I know, at least, or was friends with in college, had credit cards overall. So,
okay, that's great. I mean, I think it's really important for all of us to share the wealth of knowledge about credit cards because, as you know, both of you know, it's really advantageous to use them, especially if you use them in the right way. But I think one of the biggest questions that a lot of college students may ask when they are either starting college or they're kind of finishing up and starting their first jobs is, you know, which starter credit cards are the best for college students? And I know both of you have actually done this kind of topic on your YouTube videos, respectively. Matt, why don't you go first on this one? What would you say, or what would you recommend as a good first starter credit card for someone in college?
Yeah, so I'll take this one first. So for me, in my opinion, there's definitely a lot of good starter cards, a lot of which have no annual fees. One credit card that I definitely recommend to people is going to be the Chase Freedom Flex. And one of the reasons that I recommend the Chase Freedom Flex is, for one, it's a no annual fee card. And I definitely recommend getting no annual fee cards first because that'll build up the average age of your accounts. So the oldest credit card accounts you have will be those no annual fee cards. And since they don't have fees, there's really never a good reason to need to cancel them in the first place. And so since you never need to cancel them, your credit score will just continue to increase over time. But the Chase Freedom Flex specifically has exposure to a lot of the common spend categories that, at least for myself, were some of the common purchases that I made while in college. So for instance, it gets 5x back on rotating quarterly categories, which changes quarter to quarter, but every year. So you're pretty much guaranteed 3 months out of the year. You'll get exposure to grocery stores and you'll get exposure to gas stations, which is good because for me, two of the main purchases that I had were grocery stores and gas stations. Right now, the Freedom Flex and the Freedom Unlimited, which I know Spencer will talk about in a second, is offering the same welcome bonus, which is basically getting an extra 5% back on gas stations during your first year. So that makes right now actually a really good time to open one of these two credit cards. And then the Freedom Flex also gives you exposure to 3x back on dining, which, you know, I would, whenever I went out to eat with friends and stuff like that, I could use my Freedom Flex for that purpose. And then the reason it's also a really good starter card is because down the road, once you start to get into some more mid-tier credit cards, so example, like the Chase Sapphire Preferred, then you can take all the points that you've accumulated over time on the Freedom Flex, and you actually transfer those up to the Sapphire Preferred, and then transfer the points from your Sapphire Preferred out to Chase's travel partners. So that'll basically mean that the points that you earn on the Chase Freedom Flex will increase the redemption value upside that you're able to get with those. So if you want to redeem your points for free travel, that's a great way to do so. So that's my opinion on the Freedom Flex.
Sure. I mean, I think the Chase Sapphire Preferred is such an awesome card for a lot of reasons, especially the ones that you mentioned, Matt, where you can really transfer your points to that card to get an increased value in the redemption portion of the redemption side of the miles and the points. But you know, I know, Spencer, you also have an opinion about the best first starter card as well. And so which one do you think is the best for college students?
I would definitely recommend getting started with a starter credit card first if you have no previous credit history. For me, it worked really well to get the Chase Freedom Student because I knew I wanted to be in the Chase ecosystem already. But as for the best beginner credit card, I technically always try to go with the Chase Freedom Unlimited versus the Chase Freedom Flex, just because I feel like having the Chase Freedom Unlimited gives you at least 1.5% back on every purchase that you make, which is a big thing, you know, to have that base card that you can use, you know, for the rest of time, basically. Right when you get started, so you know that you're going to get the best rewards possible, at least for all that like catch-all categories. And in addition to that, the nice thing about the Unlimited is the fact that not only does it give you the 1.5% back on everything else, but it also matches the 5% back on the travel portal, like the Chase's travel portal. You get 5% back in there. Plus you get 3% back on dining and 3% back on drugstores. So that's super helpful as well, because most like 2% cards out there that you could get started with, while they do give you 0.5% higher, a lot of them, first of all, are cashback cards. So you're not going to be able to necessarily transfer them out to travel partners, which is like what Matt talked about. Once you get that Chase Sapphire Preferred, it's really nice to be able to transfer those points out and get a ton of value for them. But yeah, I think it's really good to have like a base earning card that gets you at least 1.5% on all your purchases. And doing it in the Chase ecosystem allows you to be super flexible with your points, which I like down the line, even if you don't care about it right away.
Right. I see. Okay, so it looks like you, Spencer, I know you always talk about the Chase Freedom Unlimited as a good first credit card. Matt, you also talk about the Chase Freedom Flex as a good first credit card. So I know I've noticed that in both of your videos on your YouTube channels. And so I actually took some clips from your YouTube channels to show you kind of the difference of the two. So we're going to roll this video clip right now, and so we'll be right back after this.
Nice.
And if you're one of my buddies and I had to recommend to you one of these cards right off the bat, I would recommend to you the Chase Freedom Unlimited.
The Chase Freedom Flex is one of my favorite no annual fee credit cards.
So I know we just covered what's the best first credit card between both of those two. I know, Spencer, you said, again, Chase Freedom Unlimited. Matt, you said the Chase Freedom Flex. But compared to both of those two cards, why do you think that compared to the other card, yours is better? Spencer, where did you go first?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, right off the bat, I will say that both of them are really great cards. The biggest thing for me, and this is why I recommend it to most people, is because it's just really simple. Like you don't really have to worry about what rotating categories or what categories are in the rotation right now. So like for my friends that are just getting started with credit cards and they might only want one credit card forever, while the Chase Freedom Flex technically probably can give you more value in those rotating 5% categories, if you use something like the Chase Freedom Unlimited, you know that you're going to be covered at that at least 1.5%, which is, a little bit better. And you also don't have to keep track of the rotating categories, which with Chase cards you have to activate. And so I just don't like explaining to all my friends, like whenever they ask me for what card they want, I don't like to have to explain like, oh yeah, once you get this card, you're also gonna have to activate this to get the most value. And you have to keep track of what they are each quarter. So for me, it's just like a simplicity thing, but it also is very much a preference thing. I have a lot of people that I know that started with the Discover It credit card, which is also a really good one that you could get started with, especially their student cards. And they got started with that. So they already kind of understood what rotating categories were. But with Discover, obviously, it's a little bit different. You know what the quarters are a year in advance, and with Chase, you don't. So I like to kind of recommend the Chase Freedom Unlimited just for that like peace of mind and that simplicity that every time you swipe your card, you're going to get at least 1.5%.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Spencer, because, sometimes we always, as credit card enthusiasts, we think that it's super easy to use a certain card for a certain category. It's kind of like, well, of course you're going to use the Amex Gold for dining and groceries. Like, why wouldn't you? But a lot of people out there, they don't care enough to really understand that. They just want to use a credit card, just like one card that does it all. And so I think using that simplicity, especially at the beginning, can be very helpful to really get them out of prime to really get into the credit card game a little bit in more detail and more specificity. But that's a really good point, Spencer. What about you, Matt? What do you think about the Chase Freedom Flex? What would make that card better than the Chase Freedom Unlimited?
Yeah, just like Spencer, same thing. I think both of these cards are great cards, and either one of them would be a great option to start out with as a beginner. I actually have both of them personally. I actually did get the Freedom Flex before I got the Freedom Unlimited, though. And I guess a couple of reasons that I started out with the Freedom Flex is because, for one, I think it's just the best rotating quarterly category card. Obviously, the Discover It kind of has something similar as well, but the Chase Freedom Flex will give you that travel redemption value upside. And I know there's some other catch-all credit cards. Obviously, I agree with Spencer. I think the Chase Freedom Unlimited is the best, even though it's not necessarily the highest. Like, obviously, you have like the City Double Cash and cards like that maybe give a little bit higher of a multiplier for the everything else category. But the Freedom Unlimited will get you those other multipliers as well as the upside with the card. But since there are other cards that are like that, whereas when you have the Chase Freedom Flex, there's not that many cards out there that are going to give you the same type of value with the rotating quarterly categories. Plus, once you start to increase your credit card setup, you're probably going to cover more categories anyways. So I guess this is speaking a little bit more to someone who is interested in wanting to increase their setup and, increase the value of their cards. Maybe they're not sticking with a one card setup or something like that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you had like a 1 or 2 card setup, then the Freedom Unlimited is probably the better option. But if you were to be someone that's interested in getting a couple of different credit cards, then you're just naturally over time going to be exposed to more categories. So as you continue to get exposed to more categories, there's a little bit less need for the everything else category. Obviously, you still want that as an option within your setup. But at that point, when you have exposure to all the major spend categories, let's say at some point, then the thing that's really going to separate you and give you the value proposition is going to be the fact that you'll get that rotating quarterly category card. And one thing that you can do too, which I saw like Ben Hedges, for example, he has like 3 Freedom Flex cards. So you get like $1,500 on the rotating category every 3 months. But then if you have multiple of them, then you basically just can increase the value that you're able to get. And so even like experienced credit card users are still continuing to use the Chase Freedom Flex, regardless of how many years they're into the credit card game and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that the Chase Freedom Flex offers that 5% rotating category. Just like Spencer said, the Discover It is also one of those cards that can actually have that too. And I think it also introduces people to, wow, you can actually get a lot more rewards from a card at the 5% level with no annual fee. I think that can also really be a big light bulb for a lot of people too, is that, you can start adding different cards into those setup to really maximize each individual category. If they, again, as you said, that if they want to go more deeper into the credit card game. But I think, it depends on the person. Just like you said, Spencer, it's personal preference. And that's what's really cool about all these credit cards, is that it depends on your personal preference, what you spend money on, and how you want to run your setup. And that's why there are so many different kinds of setups between all of us. I mean, we all run different setups, and it all works really well for each one of us. Which brings me to my next topic, is that, I'm actually really impressed by both of your setups. I've seen both of your videos of your What's in My Wallet, how you run your setups. And you guys have really set a really great example of, from my opinion, what someone just leaving college should have set up for them. So I just want to touch briefly on that for both of you, and kind of what your goals are with your current setup. And so, Spencer, why don't you go first? Tell us what's in your wallet currently and how that kind of makes your perfect setup at this point.
Yeah. I've been talking a lot about this lately. I really enjoy talking about the strategy behind credit cards. Like you said, there are going to be a lot of people that don't care to have that many credit cards, but for me, I really like to optimize the amount of value I get from my cards. So what I actually have in my wallet, first of all, I started with, like I mentioned, the Chase Freedom Student, and actually I got, tipped off to actually product change that card into a Freedom card, like you were talking about, Matt. And the cool thing about that, which I was going to mention when you were talking about it, is you don't have to product change it to a Freedom Flex. You can still product change to like an OG Freedom card, which isn't branded the same. So I could still apply for the Freedom Flex now, even though I don't have it, and get the welcome bonus on it. So that's a really good point. Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So now I have the Freedom card, the OG Freedom card, instead of the Chase Freedom Student. And then I have the Freedom Unlimited that I use for like a lot of my purchases. And then I also have the Chase Sapphire Preferred. Can't forget about that one. So that kind of rounds out my Chase Trifecta, which is super powerful in my opinion, and like something I talk about probably too much. And then I just recently got the Amex Gold to kind of pick up all of my food purchases, because I feel like I spend the most there. I spend the most on my Amex Gold plus my Freedom Unlimited for like the everything else categories. And then on top of that, I added in the City Custom Cash as well to kind of be like that last really flexible card that I can use to get me 5% in a category that my other cards don't. I don't know if you want to get into the particulars of all these cards, but basically I would say I use my cards for the Chase Freedom Unlimited for everything else. Like whenever I just need a base 1.5%, that's what I put it on. For all my food purchases, it's automatically on the gold card. And then for my gas purchases, I put that all in my custom cash, because my other cards don't cover gas at all. So I get 5% on that as well, which is really nice. And then my Chase Sapphire Preferred is used only to, basically at this point, only to transfer out the travel partners and for some streaming services, but mostly to transfer out the travel partners with my Chase cards.
Awesome. So you have a good Chase Trifecta, then you have the Amex Gold, and then you have the City Custom Cash. I think that's covering a lot of great categories. So I think you're well on your way to having a really great setup in the future for sure. Matt, what about you?
Yeah, my setup's going to be a little bit similar to Spencer. So just like him, I also have the Chase Trifecta. So I have the Freedom Unlimited, the Freedom Flex, and the Sapphire Preferred. And then another card that I've used pretty frequently. So I have 2 other cards, which are the regular Hilton Honors card, the no annual fee version, and then my Alaska Airlines card. Those 2 cards I don't use very often. So they're kind of just, I'll use them for a purchase every now and then just to keep them active and stuff. But The main 4 cards I use are the Chase Trifecta, which I just talked about, and then the Hilton Surpass, which is the mid-tier card in the Hilton ecosystem. And the reason I use that is because it actually, despite being like a hotel co-branded credit card, it actually does have some pretty good elevated multipliers. Hilton points do have a lower valuation, so you have to take that into account. But even when you do take that into account, it still is getting you some pretty solid multipliers. So 3x on grocery stores is the main thing that I use the Hilton Surpass for. So when the Chase Freedom Flex is not offering that as a 5x category, then I'll use the Hilton Surpass as my grocery store credit card and get 3x back on it. And then just like Spencer, I'll use the Freedom Unlimited as my catch-all credit card. So 1.5x back on everything if it's outside of specific categories that are covered by other cards. The Freedom Flex, I actually got the welcome bonus for the 5% back on gas stations. So I'm getting that throughout all of 2022. So that's basically my default gas card because of that. And then, so I'm covering gas, groceries there. And then dining, I can pretty much interchangeably go between the Freedom Flex and Freedom Unlimited because I'm getting 3x on that. The Hilton Surpass also gets me 3x on dining. So I could also use that if I wanted to. So I have some other options there. But ultimately, my goal with this setup is I'm trying to build out no annual fee credit cards or credit cards that I don't think I'll ever need to cancel. So the Hilton Surpass, for example, yes, it is an annual fee card. It's a $95 annual fee, but I have the option. I can downgrade it down to the no annual fee version whenever I want to. So for instance, in the future, if I wanted to go ahead and get the Hilton Aspire card, the high tier credit card, then I could just downgrade the Surpass to the Hilton Honors card, and then I don't need to cancel it. I still keep the account open. I would just downgrade it. So I'm trying to build out my average age of accounts, which is going to be by opening as many cards that I never need to cancel as possible. So I am also looking to get the City Custom Cash sometime in the next couple of months. That'll be probably the next credit card I plan to get. And overall, just trying to prioritize those low fee cards or cards I never need to cancel. So.
Yeah, that's great. I think what I'm really getting from this conversation is that the Chase Trifecta is something that you should aim for as a recent college graduate. Is that something that I think you both recommend?
Absolutely. Yep.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So that's great because that's going to segue us into our next topic here. And so I want you guys to kind of imagine you just recently graduated college, but you're going to be in your careers for many years, and say 10, 15 years, you've made it somehow. You've either made it in your career or you've done something where you're more successful at that point. What would be your ideal or perfect credit card setup? Just annual fees aside, any other issuer aside, like what do you think is going to be your perfect and ideal setup? Matt, why don't we start with you?
Yeah. So as I just mentioned, I'm right now trying to build out the average age of my accounts to basically prioritizing no annual fee cards. But down the road, if I'm thinking like 10 to 15 years down the road, what my ideal setup would look like, I think I'll definitely start getting into some of the more luxury travel credit cards, definitely in the high tier space. So the Hilton Aspire card is a card that I covered recently on my channel, and that's a card that I definitely want to get because I think just the amount of value you get from all the credits just significantly outpace the fee. So it's a pretty good keeper card because you're simply just getting so much more value, especially if you stay at Hilton's at least like once a year. And if you travel frequently, then you're getting just based on 2 credits alone, you get a $250 Hilton Resort credit, and then you get a $250 airline fee credit. So just right there, you basically get rid of the annual fee on that card, and then you get a ton of other stuff like Hilton Diamond status and really popular benefits with that as well. So Hilton Aspire card is one. I think definitely the Amex Gold card is going to be a card that I probably get in the next couple of years. That'll be really good for the lifestyle multipliers, but also some of the credits that can decrease the fee. Amex Platinum down the road, definitely something I want to get as well for some of the lounge access and luxury travel perks that you get with that as well. And I still want to keep my Chase Trifecta because I probably at some point will consider getting the Amex Trifecta. And I think 10 to 15 years down the road, that's definitely something I'll have. But I want to have the Chase Trifecta too. So I basically have the options to transfer out to Chase's travel partners, and I can transfer out to American Express travel partners. And with both of them, I'm basically maximizing all the redemption value I get from all the points that I earn. Then I can basically just take those and travel for free in some cases, or it's just significantly cheaper than I otherwise would have. So yeah, the Amex Trifecta, I guess, is probably number one on a list that I would want in 10, 15 years.
That's great. I mean, I always wonder in 10, 15 years what the sign-up bonus for the Amex Platinum is going to be. It's going to be like 1 million MR points or something, the way inflation is going at this point. So yes, that to look forward to, and especially because you have that once-in-a-lifetime sign-up bonus opportunity. You know, if you apply for it in that, I guess, that long time, I can only imagine the number of membership reward points it's going to be at that point. So something to look forward to. Spencer, what about you?
Yeah, I think I'm in a pretty similar boat, at least thinking about it right now. I think that my Chase Trifecta is going to stay for sure, just because it does accumulate a ton of points. I mean, if they come out with some card that gives me, at least 3% back or something like that on all my purchases, then yeah, I might change up the Chase Freedom Unlimited or something. But with how I value my Chase points right now, if, considering that I'm going to be aiming to transfer them all out to travel partners, I always say that you can get at least 2 cents per point in value if you just do your research and, book early and all that, especially if you're flying internationally and in higher class seats. But even domestically, you can get some pretty good value from it. But if you say you value your points at 2 cents per point with Chase, then I'm earning effectively 3% back on all my purchases already. So it's kind of hard to beat that. Right. Mm-hmm. Unless unless another great card comes out. So yeah, I think my Chase Trifecta will stay. Theoretically, one day I would love if they would actually update the reserve card to a point where it's really competitive, and I could just have that as my luxury travel card, because that is going to be something I want down the line. Mm-hmm. If not, though, right now on my horizon, I definitely think for the luxury travel side of things, I want to get the Charles Schwab version of the Amex Platinum, mainly because that's who I also have a brokerage account with, and you can transfer your points from that card to your brokerage account at 1.1 cent per point right now. So at that rate, I would be getting at least, over 1 cent per point in value for my Amex points. And in general, Amex points can only be cashed out at 0.6 cents per point. So that's a pretty good jump there. Plus I get a lot of travel benefits with that card, obviously. I think another thing that I would like to add into, and this is probably going to be what I focus on this next year, so a little more short term, is adding in business cards here and there, especially whenever I'm trying to, the way I say it is garden your 524 status. I don't know if y'all watch RJ Financial, but I would imagine you do. But yeah, that's what he calls it as well.
He's a great guy. Great guy. Yeah. Very knowledgeable.
Yeah, it's kind of insane how much he knows. But yeah, so basically all that's saying is that with Chase, there's a 524 rule, meaning that, if you apply or if you get 5 or more credit cards in the last 24 months, then Chase is going to deny you for another credit card, basically. Mm-hmm. And so whenever I'm gardening that status, I'm waiting for my my older cards to be older than 2 years so that I can get, back under 524 and get new personal cards. So in the meantime, I'd like to get business cards. And I think that's going to be something that I will really be using to also kind of farm the welcome bonuses, because they come with some really high welcome bonuses in the business side. And I know I might not be getting into that in this video, but I kind of picture my whole setup being still this 5 card foundation that I have, I could probably keep forever and be happy, completely happy. But once I have a family and stuff, I think I'll be, looking to get an actual travel card that I can, use the benefits for. And then plus having some business cards in there for the welcome bonuses, but also for the spend and other categories. And then, theoretically just adding personal cards whenever they really come up and make sense for me. But I think it's, credit cards are so personal, and you can create so many different setups with it that I don't know if I'll ever get bored, and I'll probably keep applying for a long time.
Absolutely. And you guys started so early on in your careers, and you guys both have great setups, and you have a really strong foundation to start building a lot more credit cards. So I'm actually a little bit jealous of you guys, because I don't have that amount of time that you guys have. You guys started really early, and so now you have all this opportunity in the next 5, 10, 15 years to really strengthen your core setup. Whereas for someone for myself, for example, I didn't really build my core setup until last year. And so I was just kind of woolly-walling all over the place with credit cards, not knowing what I was doing, whereas you guys have this opportunity to really be at the right place at the right time and really just go nuts with these credit cards, and you guys really understand them very well too. And so that's also really helpful. And of course you guys do a really good job explaining kind of what you guys are, what your personal stance are on this credit card or that credit card, or what you're doing with your own personal setup. So that is always really fun to see on your YouTube channels. One of the last questions I'm going to ask you about this particular topic in the realm of credit cards is, I know that we always talk about credit cards being really good for points and miles, mainly for the redemptions. And so obviously cashback is great, but miles are kind of where you can really take these aspirational trips and these things that we usually wouldn't do. And so my next question for you guys is there any future plans or dream trips that you'd like to take in the future using credit card points or credit card miles? Spencer, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I really should be better at using my points. I don't know about y'all, but I feel like a lot of people that, or at least that I know, that get started in the credit card game really like to hoard their points and don't like to spend them. And that's definitely in the camp I'm in right now, especially with everything that's been going on the last couple of years with the lack of travel. I've been really just hoarding up my points, and I like to see that number climb. But I think I really need to get one big trip planned, like an international trip that I actually could fly like first class or business class, for example, and get a ton of value for my points. And I think that would kind of kick me into gear and wanting to use my points more. But yeah, right now I think I'm kind of stuck in that hoarding phase. I don't know if y'all can relate to that at all.
Well, I think we call it hoarding phase. I would just say saving up for an aspirational trip.
That's a better way to phrase it.
Yeah. But is there anywhere you want to go? Like any things that like places you want? Obviously, first class travel is great, but it's something like, do you want to go to Asia? Do you want to go to Europe? Is there some kind of certain airline you wanted to do a first class trip on that you've heard of or seen that you would really like to travel on?
Yeah, I know particularly with Amex's travel partners, they have a lot of really cool ways to redeem your points through their through those travel partners. For example, they have like Air France and stuff like that you can fly. That's more of like an international line. I'd really like to go to London one day. That would be something that I think would be really cool. And flying like business class there from the States it's obviously gonna be really expensive to do in cash, but with points you can get there for pretty cheap if you jump through a bunch of hoops and kind of transfer your points around to get those really good values.
Yeah.
But there are a ton of great videos out there. I haven't personally made any of these yet, but also like blogs. That's where I found a lot of information about travel, like how to get redemption or the most redemption for your points. But yeah, I'd love to go to London one day as one. I want to go to Australia really bad too. I don't know how that would work with points. I haven't heard many people talk about booking trips to Australia, but I feel like you can get a ton of value going to Europe and Asia is what I've heard through people that have traveled with their points. And that's something that I want to look into soon because I have the points that I feel like I can at least book one trip that's pretty nice. So
yeah, and there's a lot of, like you said, a lot of blogs, a lot of resources out there to figure out what's the best redemption. And sometimes even the best redemption is the one that you can just use. It's enough to be like 2 cents per point, 5 cents per point, 10 cents per point. It could just be like 1.5 cents per point. As long as you're taking that trip on miles and points and you're going to get value out of it, that's still a good value in my opinion. And so I think it's just planning ahead and seeing kind of what fits your budget, kind of what fits the time of the year you're traveling to. And I think that's really good to have those aspirations. Yeah. What about you, Bat?
Yeah, I'm very similar to Spencer. I think it just comes from like the personal finance standpoint as far as like wanting to save. Like I'll even like save my Chick-fil-A points and never use them and just continue to rack them up. And I don't know what it is. I just like seeing my points go up. And it's like if I use it and then I like don't have them anymore, then I'm gonna be like, dang, I wish I had those points or something. So I'm definitely saving a lot of my points right now. I'm actually close to 500,000 points just overall across everything. That's awesome. That's including Hilton. So obviously Hilton has a lower valuation, but still it's nice that I'm getting up there, I guess, to where I start to have enough points to take some of those aspirational trips. So for me personally, I'm actually big into wanting to, I guess, spread my credit card points out as much as possible. I like want to travel everywhere. So I'm not like, I guess when I usually travel, I'll definitely have a couple of these trips where I stay at like nice resorts and things like that. But I usually like to like get away from the resort scene and like kind of go out and like hang out with the locals and like do some more of that type of stuff. So my goal, honestly, with my credit card points is maybe not as much like use them for like one trip, but instead like try to spread them across as much travel as possible. So like, for instance, like I want to go to South America and I want to go to Asia, Europe, Africa. I pretty much just want to go everywhere. So like as whatever's going to give me the best redemption, I guess, is where I'll go. One thing off the top of my head, though, is Alaska. So that was my first credit card. I think I have over 70,000 Alaska points now. And there's one just crazy redemption with Alaska points that I'm not going to be able to pass it up. So basically with Alaska, you can fly Cathay Pacific first class, which is like one of the lie flat seats, kind of like Emirates first class, where you have like world-class chefs come in and like, it's basically the luxury of the luxury as far as like flying experience. And you can get a first class ticket on Cathay Pacific one way for 70,000 Alaska points, which is just like an insanely valuable. I think it's like 38 cents per point in redemption value, which is just
my gosh, that's great.
Yeah. So, because like the cash rates are like at a very, very minimum, like $10,000 a seat for first class Cathay Pacific from the US to Asia. So just because I would never think about doing that with cash, I might as well at some point use my Alaska points. That would be a good usage with it. So as of now, I'm actually planning winter 2023 to go to Southeast Asia and fly one way, first class on Cathay Pacific. Because Southeast Asia is definitely on my bucket list as well, because it's a great place to go when you're young. Because once you get there, the US dollar just goes super far. And there's also just like cool places to go and things to see and everything. So I think I'm definitely going to try and take advantage of the Cathay Pacific option there. But other than that, I'm just trying to spread my points across as many trips as possible. So
that's amazing. I mean, it's glad you have that trip planned and you're really thinking about how to really maximize your points and getting that really insane level of value, would you say that you would fly more economy class flights to these multiple places, or would you try to aim to do first class to all of them?
I think definitely, since I'm wanting to spread my points across as many trips as possible, for the most part, I'll probably fly economy. But if I have certain situations to where I guess I'll just really pay attention to the redemption value. And if I'm just getting like crazy level of redemption value on any particular trip, then I'll probably take advantage of it and go business class or first class or whatever that may be. But if it's like a pretty regular type value that I'll get, then I'll probably save the points and I'll stick with economy. Another thing with me is I really like staying at Airbnbs over hotels for the most part. I know I do have the Hilton Sir Bass card, so it's a little bit counterintuitive there, but I'll use the Hilton Sir Bass card still. But definitely when I travel, I usually try to stay at Airbnbs, and that's partly because I usually like to get away from the resort scene and sometimes go out into like a fully immersed into the culture that I'm traveling to. So I think I'll primarily use my points for airline, for flights, and then for hotels, since usually Airbnb at times can be cheaper, especially if you get away from like the main tourist traps, I guess, then I'll probably mainly pay cash for when I get there, but then I'll use points to actually get to my destination, I guess, if that makes sense. So
yeah, definitely. I think you have to really figure out for yourself, do you want to use them for first class travel or for economy class or both? And so I think you still got a lot of time to figure out that as well, just because you're building up all those points and all those miles. And so it's really cool to hear about kind of what you guys are planning in terms of redemptions, just because, again, you guys are just going to keep building up these points as time moves forward.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing, Stan?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just thinking too, while Matt was talking, I think one pretty cool thing that credit cards offer you the ability to do is it's not like we have these points and we're only ever going to use them once and then we're out forever. There's a really easy way to be able to like budget how many points you're going to have in the future as well. Because if you apply for a card for example, I know me and Matt, I don't know about you, Stan, but we made videos on this recently. We usually apply for cards like every 3 to 4 months. And if you budget how much you're going to get for those welcome bonuses on those cards, like roughly out, then you kind of know what like trips you can actually book with those points. So it's not like we're going to use these once and be completely done with travel forever. Like these are going to last us basically forever as long as we use them and use them responsibly. And also, just keep on applying for cards for the welcome bonuses, but in a way that you're not going to be bogged down with annual fees and,
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a really good point to bring up, Spencer. I totally agree with that. Again, as long as you continue to use your card responsibly and make sure you spend the money that you typically would spend on the credit cards to meet the sign-up bonuses, you almost have an endless stream of points and miles from multiple different issuers. If that's kind of the road you want to take. And I think that there's just so many options out there for different credit cards to take advantage of. So that's really a great point. I guess I just want to close with any final comments you guys had about college students getting their first credit card, any final recommendations that you may have, and also where people can find you if they want to see more of your content. Spencer, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think this is one thing that I tell a lot of people in my comment section that are younger and just getting started, is that if you are looking for a video like this, then you're going to be way ahead than a lot of your peers. And that's like the biggest thing, is to not stop learning about the stuff that you're passionate about. Not only that, but this credit card stuff or just personal finance in general can really help you to actually create financial freedom for yourself in the future. So just keep learning would be my thing. And, keep coming back to our channels, of course, but other channels in the niche, and learn as much as you can from a bunch of different people, because we each have our own presentation style and we each bring our own experiences, like you mentioned, Stan. So just make sure to do that. But yeah, and then y'all can find me at Spencer Johnson, basically on YouTube. If you can't find me by my name, then just put credit card after it. I'm sure it'll pull up. I
actually had a hard time finding you on YouTube at the beginning. That's for sure.
Yeah, it took a while. There's one other Spencer Johnson that he's got some subscribers, but he doesn't have a credit card. So
don't worry, you'll pass him up real soon. Don't worry.
Let's hope. Yeah. But yeah, so that's where you can find me. But again, Stan, I appreciate you having me on, and it's been a really great time talking with y'all. So
awesome. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend, like I've kind of been preaching throughout this podcast and how I've preached on some of my YouTube videos, is definitely start out with, if you're talking credit cards specifically, start out with trying to prioritize getting those no annual fee cards first, and really just try to think long term with it, because the types of credit cards that you get in the future are all a long-term game. So you're not trying to go out and get the Amex Platinum when it's your first ever credit card, obviously. So you're trying to plan for the long-term future that you're going to have. So you want to build up your credit score by trying to prioritize some of those no annual fee cards first. And by doing that, you'll build up a good foundation to where you can then take that foundation and start gradually applying for mid-tier cards, then high-tier cards, and things like that. And you just want to make sure that you're not rushing yourself. Like, you're always at your own pace. So if you need to take a year in between your first couple of credit card applications, that's totally fine. There's no one telling you have to apply X amount of times. Obviously, you shouldn't just apply for a credit card the day after you applied for a previous one. But
Sure.
At the same time, you want to just make sure that you're being responsible and making your payments and doing all those types of things that's going to allow you to positively increase your credit score over time. And yeah, I just think that hopefully you take some of the things that we learned in this podcast. I learned a lot as well. I know all of us did. And hopefully you can apply that, kind of like what Spencer said. Everyone's a constant learner. So 4 years ago, I probably knew nothing about credit cards. Like I just said at the start of the podcast, the first credit card I got was just because that's what the card my parents had. Like, I knew nothing about the credit card game. So if you're just starting to learn, then, there's a lot to learn, but don't be mad at yourself that you don't know a certain amount yet. I still have a ton to learn. I definitely don't know that much about some premium cards out there that I haven't gotten yet. So it's just all about constant learning. And yeah, overall, I had a great time on this podcast, Stan. Thank you for having me as well. And I had a great time connecting with both of you. And I know, again, we learned a lot. So thank you.
Yeah, it's been really fun to talk to both of you. And I know we're going to do probably many more of these in the future. So thank you again so much for coming on. And so thanks to everyone for watching this video. I hope you really enjoyed something and learned something. And of course, we will all see you in the next video.